Welcome to Live Daf, your online Daf Yomi Shiur.
Shalom and welcome back to today's Daf Yomi Shabbos Daf Mem Daled, with 3 lines from the top. Says the Gemara, Ein ne'oisin himenu. The Gemara here is referring back to the Mishnah, which told us that oil dripping from a lit lamp, Ein ne'oisin himenu. One cannot have benefit hana from this shemen. Why? Because it's not prepared for Shabbos. Now we're going to continue discussing the topic of muktzah. What is the literal definition of muktzah? It means set aside, sideline, rejected. It's not connected to Shabbos use, and therefore it's forbidden on Shabbos. Now there are various opinions, different shittas, and many scenarios of muktzah. We're going to try Be'ez Hashem to learn it slowly, step by step, and at the end of the daf, try to put it all together with a nice diagram, so hopefully we'll walk away with some clarity. So once again, the Mishnah told us, Ein ne'oisin himenu. One may not derive hana from the shemen which drips from a burning lamp, because it's not prepared for Shabbos. Now let's just backtrack a second. Oil in a burning lamp, all agree, Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Shimon, all agree, one may not draw from that oil. That is considered to be mechabe. He's actually putting out, extinguishing the flame. Why? Because when one draws oil from a burning lamp, the drawing of the oil impacts the brightness of the flame. And that's considered to be mechabe and nisa d'oraisa. So all agree that that's forbidden, that's also. What about the oil that drips from this burning lamp, from this lit lamp? Says the Mishnah, that too is asur, it's not prepared. So all agree. Even Reb Shimon agrees in this case as well, because, as the Gemara later will tell us, that the oil within this lamp, which is in Eir Shabbos, is designated for the mitzvah of Shabbos. It's huktzah l'mitzvasai. It takes on a new identity. It's in a different realm. It's not something which is meant for ordinary use. Therefore, even Reb Shimon agrees that this is considered to be muktzah. So this is very clear. Number one, the oil within the burning lamp, one cannot draw from that because that is a malach of mechabe. It impacts the brightness of the flame. The same thing regarding the oil dripping from the lamp. All agree that that's asur for a different reason, because that's muktzah. It's coming from an Eir Shabbos, and even Reb Shimon agrees that a huktzah l'mitzvasai, the oil which was designated to be used for the mitzvah, is asur to be used on Shabbos. What about oil that remains after the flame has already gone out? That's what we're going to learn right now. Tana Rabbana, we learned in the Brayso. Moisar hashemen, leftover oil, shebeneir u'shebekar, in the lamp or the bowl, when the flame has already gone out. What about that? Now here, it's not anymore designated for the mitzvah. It's leftover. The only reason why it can be asur is because it was once muktzah, meaning at the onset of Shabbos, ben hashmoshes, when Shabbos arrives, this oil was muktzah. Why was it muktzah? Because it was designated for the mitzvah, or because it was muktzah machmas isur, because one was not allowed to take that oil on Shabbos. By doing so, he's doing malach of mechaber, like we just said. So it was designated, it was rejected, it was sidelined, it was set aside from Shabbos use on account of isur. One may not use it because using it is an isur. So when this shemen in this ner was muktzah, either because muktzah machmas mitzvah or muktzah machmas isur, actually another reason, because it served as a basis, as a base, as a support for the shalheves, for the flame. That too is muktzah. So, based on any of these 3 reasons, this oil was muktzah when? At the entry point of Shabbos, at the onset of Shabbos. It was muktzah ben hashmoshes. Now, does that muktzah carry on throughout Shabbos? Does it continue throughout Shabbos even after the reason, the catalyst for the muktzah disappeared? There's no more shalheves sitting on this oil. This oil is taking it, doesn't weaken any brightness of flames. The flame has gone out. It's not anymore designated for a mitzvah. The flame is out. Rabbi Yehuda maintains, yes, once an item has assumed the status of muktzah at the onset of Shabbos, at the beginning point of Shabbos, at Ben Hashmashos, it is rendered muktzah, has a status of muktzah, and it is not anymore fit for Shabbos use. Because Rav Yehuda holds that in order for something to be permitted to be used on Shabbos, it needs to be designated for Shabbos. It needs to be oimid for Shimush of Shabbos. But if it was at one point muktzah, once muktzah is always muktzah. Once it's muktzah at the beginning of Shabbos, that determines its status. It acquires its identity at that point. Once it's muktzah at that point, even after the reason disappears, it still remains with the status, with the din of muktzah throughout the entire Shabbos. So once again, Tana Rabbanan we learned in the Brayso, Moisra Hashem and leftover oil shabener and the lamp shabakara and the bowl, after the lamp has been already extinguished, also one may partake in that oil because it is muktzah, since it was muktzah at the first point, at the point of entry of Shabbos. Reb Shimon says there's no such concern as long as it's not muktzah now, as long as it's not right now huktzil mitzvah because the flame has already gone out. There's no concern just because it was muktzah at one point at the commencement of Shabbos. There's no concern because according to Reb Shimon, muktzah is only something which is absolutely rejected from Shabbos use. It can't be used on Shabbos. It's not fit for Shabbos use. For instance, a rock. The Gemara is going to speak about money. It has no practical function on Shabbos. But if something has a practical function on Shabbos, it's mutter. And therefore, we're not concerned about the fact that it was not designated for Shabbos. At the beginning of Shabbos, it wasn't intended for Shabbos. It was part of a lamp arrangement. That doesn't concern us. If right now it's usable, it's okay. So let's make a quick, brief summary of the halachas we already have up until this point. What about using the shemen, the oil within a lamp? That depends. If it's from a lit lamp, metoich ner dalek ol akri, it's usher to take that oil. He's being mechaber. He's affecting the brightness, dimming the brightness of this lamp. Number two, it's huktzil mitzvasai. It's right now designated. It's feeding the lamp which is ner Shabbos. So all agree that this is usher, whether Rav Yehuda or Rav Shimon. What about the oil dripping from a ner doilek? All agree. Rav Yehuda and Rav Shimon both agree that too is muktzah. Why? Because this oil is coming from a ner Shabbos, and it was designated for the ner Shabbos. It is huktzil mitzvasai. What about the leftover oil after the lamp has already gone out? Here we have a machlokes. This is a case where it's muktzah ben hashmashos. Why was it muktzah ben hashmashos? Number one, because of isur mechaber. You couldn't take that oil because it would dim the brightness of the lamp. That's an isur mechaber, so it's a muktzah machmas isur. Or because it is serving as a basis for the shalhevesh, a basis for a support for the flame. So since it was muktzah at the onset of Shabbos, according to Rabbi Yehuda, it derives its din muktzah, which carries throughout the whole Shabbos. According to Rabbi Shimon, that's not a concern, because now it's not muktzah any longer, and now it's mutter. Continues the Mishnah. We're going to have another type of muktzah, called muktzah machmas mius, an item which is repulsive, which is repugnant. Is that considered to be muktzah? It's not really so suitable for ordinary use. According to Rabbi Yehuda, yes, that is also called muktzah, because it's not muchen for Shabbos. It's not prepared. It's not destined really to be used on Shabbos. It's something which is repulsive. Says the Mishnah, metaltlin ner chadash. One may move a ner chadash, a new lamp, a new earthenware lamp which wasn't yet used, since it's clean. It's fine. It's not mius. Aval yashan, but a ner of cheres, of earthenware which was already used previously, it's a ner yashan. That is muktzah machmas mius. It's repugnant, it's repulsive, it is grimy on account of the oil that it absorbed, and therefore that too is considered to be muktzah. This is the shita of Rabbi Yehuda, who applies muktzah even in this case. Rabbi Shimon Aimer, no, muktzah machmas mius is fine, because it's still usable. It still has practical use on Shabbos. So what that it's not so pleasant, that doesn't make it usher betiltel. It's not absolutely rejected from Shabbos. He prefers not using it. Fine, that doesn't make it usher. Reb Shimon Omer, kol haneris meltaltlin. One may move any sort of lamp, even an earthenware lamp which was used previously and is grimy. Chutz, except for one thing. Chutz min haner hadoilik b'Shabbos. A lamp which is actually burning on Shabbos. In that case, Reb Shimon agrees that it's usher. Why? So Rashi says because there's a concern that he might inadvertently extinguish the flame. The Mefarshim ask on Rashi, because the Gemara later on Daf Mem Hey gives us a different reason. It's because actually on Daf Mem Vav, because actually on Daf Mem Zayin, because the ner is serving as a basis, as a base for the shalheves, and that's why it's muktzah even according to Reb Shimon. Now, why is the shalheves muktzah according to Reb Shimon? There's a whole discussion about it. We'll see later on Daf Mem Zayin. Chazon Ish says that a shaleves is constantly recreating itself. It's a very intense state of noilad, which even according to Reb Shimon is muktzah. So the ner, which is serving as a base, as a basis, base and basis basically mean the same thing. Very interesting that the word English and Hebrew word are very similar sounding. So the base, the basis, the lamp, which is serving as a base for the shaleves, even according to Reb Shimon, is muktzah. So once again, Reb Shimon tells Reb Yehuda, no, I don't agree with the concept of muktzah machmas miyus. However, a ner which is right now currently lit, currently burning, min haner hadoilek v'Shabbos, that is muktzah. And if we'll work with the reason that stated in the Gemara, so it's because the ner is considered to be a basis for the shalheves, a basis, a davar aser. Therefore, even I agree that it is aser. But merely on account of miyus, of being repulsive, that's not a reason to forbid moving the ner. So once again, Rabbi tells us, teaches, introduces us to a new concept of muktzah machmas miyus. Reb Shimon rejects that. He says, no, that's not a problem. The only way a ner is muktzah if it's currently lit. In that case, it's muktzah according to my shita as well. Continues the Gemara Tana Rabbanan. We're going to have a four-way machlekes with regard to muktzah. Okay, let's start. Let's start with Rabbi Yehuda. Tana Rabbanan metaltlin ner chadash avalo yashan. Okay, so this is a repetition of the words of the Mishnah, that a ner yashan, a earthenware, a ner of cheres, which absorbs the oil, it gets greasy and grimy, it's muktzah machmas miyus, divrei Rabbi Yehuda. So Rabbi Yehuda refers to muktzah machmas miyus. Ramei is going to refer to a different type of muktzah. He says, kol haner is metaltlin. One may be metaltlin, any sort of ner, even if it is a ner of cheres, which was previously used, a ner yashan, which according to Rabbi Yehuda is muktzah machmas miyus. Ramei rejects that, he disagrees. He can be metaltlin that ner as well. He doesn't agree with muktzah machmas miyus. So what? It's uncomfortable. He prefers not using it. It doesn't make it muktzah. Kol haner is metaltlin chutz min haner shidliku by b'Shabbos, except for a ner which was lit b'Shabbos, and there's a gersa that says b'oiseh Shabbos, on this Shabbos. Why is that? Because even if the flame has already been extinguished, has already gone out, there's no more lit lamp here, nevertheless Ramei says it is still muktzah, because it is muktzah machmas isur, because the flame and the ner that's upholding, that's supporting the flame, the ner is called a basis of davar aser. It's a basis for the flame, which is isur. One may not go ahead and touch the flame. He's going to extinguish it. So on account of the malacha of mechaber, one may not touch this flame. It's considered to be an item of isur, and the ner as well is subordinate to that flame. It is a basis of davar aser. So even though right now there's no flame present, Ramei holds that once muktzah is always muktzah. Meaning, if at the onset of Shabbos, at the beginning point of Shabbos, this ner acquired the status, was categorized as muktzah machas isur. When something is muktzah ben hashmashas, is muktzah l'kul yomim for the entire Shabbos. So Ramei disagrees with muktzah machas miyus, but he agrees. He states that muktzah machmas isur is considered to be muktzah. And once it was muktzah machmas isur during ben hashmashas, that carries throughout the whole Shabbos, and it remains muktzah. So once again, Rabbi Yehuda is discussing muktzah machmas miyus, Ramei muktzah machmas isur. I think more later we'll discuss, is going to explore whether Rabbi Yehuda agrees to muktzah machmas isur or not. But it's clear that Ramei does not agree with muktzah machmas miyus of Rabbi Yehuda. So here we have two shitas so far. Here comes the third sheet of Reb Shimon, who is very lenient with regard to muktzah, with regard to the applications of muktzah. Reb Shimon Omer, all types of neiros can be moved on Shabbos. Chutz min haner hadoylek v'Shabbos, unless it's currently burning, currently lit. As we discussed earlier, Rashi says because he might inadvertently put out the flame when he carries this ner. Others ask on Rashi, according to Reb Shimon, davar she'ein miskaven is mutter, so why is that a problem? And in fact, the Gemara Daf Yomi Shabbos gives us the reason of basis, the davar aser at the ner, while its lid is forming as a support, a base for the shaleves, which is davar aser, and therefore, once again, a burning lamp on Shabbos is aser to remove, even according to Reb Shimon. However, kavsa, once the flame goes out, mutter l'tatl, it's okay, because according to Reb Shimon, once again, there's no concept of muktzah me'ash mashos. He doesn't hold of this concept that if a muktzah was there during Ben Hashmashos, it stretches throughout the entire Shabbos. It acquires the status of muktzah. It's off limits. No, he holds that as long as it's suitable, as long as it's usable, it's okay, regardless of whether it was muktzah during the commencement, during the haschala, during the Ben Hashmashos of Shabbos. So once again, Rav Shimon says, I don't agree with muktzah machmas miyas, nor with muktzah machmas iser on account of it being muktzah during Ben Hashmashos. That's not a concern for me. He can be metaltal a ner if there's no lit flame right now. However, if it's lit, then there's a problem, because right now this lamp is serving this shaleves and has the din of shaleves. It is a davar aser, is a muktzah machmas iser because of the burning flame. Continues the brisa, and we're not exactly sure who's the author of the following statement. Aval bat, kois, a cup, a ka'ara, a bowl, a shashes, a large container, which contain oil, and there's a flame burning, a wick burning, the flame out of these containers. Lo yazizem mimkaimam. He cannot go ahead and move these items even after the flame has gone out. Going to explore soon who is the man omer of this halacha. So far we have three shitas. Rabbi Yehuda, who discusses muktzah machmas miyas. Rabbi Meir discusses muktzah machmas iser of ben hashmashos. Rabbi Shimon tells us none of these concerns concern me. It's only a ner which is currently burning. Finally, says the brisa, we have a false shita. Rabbi Lezer, Rabbi Shimon, so he was the son of Rabbi Shimon. He says, "Oimer mistapik min aner hakava." One can draw oil from a lamp which is actually currently burning, but it's covered, it's sputtering. Rashi says, this concern about taking oil from which is supplying a flame, one may not do that on account of the fact that he's dimming the brightness of the flame, considered to be mechaber. This doesn't apply in this case where the nearest cover, it appears to be going out already, it's sputtering. There's no such a concern. That's number one. And one can derive hana, can use the shemen, the oil which is dripping, even from a burning lamp. So Rabbi Lezer, the son of Shimon, is going a step further. He's allowing even more than his father. Because as we discussed earlier, according to Reb Shimon, one certainly cannot use oil that's dripping from a burning lamp. It's designated to be used for the Ner Shabbos, which is a mitzvah. That's an entirely different category of muktzah. According to Reb Shimon, that certainly has the din of issa muktzah. It's not meant for personal use. It has its own identity. It's a mitzvah. It's rejected from ordinary use on Shabbos. His son, Rabbi Lezer, permits that. He says, even oil coming from a ner is dripping from a burning lamp is mutter. In fact, Amar Abaye, Rabbi Lezer, Reb Shimon, Saval Kavod B'chada. Apparently, he agrees with his father to some extent. And he goes further than his father. He disagrees with his father in the additional element of the shemen that is dripping from the ner. As he explains, says Abai, Savala Kavod B'chada, he agrees with his father regarding one element, the Lesle Muktzah. He doesn't agree with Muktzah, meaning that even though something was serving the Shalheves during Ben Hashmashos, it doesn't concern us. If now the Shalheves, the flame is out, has been extinguished, there's no muktzah to be applied to the ner. One can be metal to this ner. So he doesn't agree to the concept, to the application of muktzah once the flame has already gone out. So in that halacha, he agrees with his father. But he disagrees with his father on another account. He goes further than his father. The ilu avua savar, his father, Reb Shimon holds, kava in, only if the flame goes out. Loy kava loy, but if it's still burning, then one may not partake in this oil coming from this lamp, because it's hooks mitzvah. It's only the leftover oil after the lamp goes out that is mutter according to Reb Shimon. The Savar, however, his son, Reb Lezer, the son of Reb Shimon, holds, even if the flame is still burning bright, he can partake in the oil that's dripping out of this lamp. Okay, so we have 3 shittas, 4 shittas. We have Reb Yehuda, we have Reb Meir, we have Reb Shimon, and going even further than his father, more mekel than his father, is Reb Lezer, Reb Shimon, who allows one to partake, to have a no from the oil that's dripping from a burning Ner Shabbos. Continues the Gemara. We had a statement in the Brisa which said, Aval bat kois or ka'ara v'ashashes, all these types of containers, lo yizizem im kaiman, they cannot be moved from their place, even after the flame has already gone out. Says Ramaish. So the Gemara at this point is assuming that this is the closing statement of Reb Shimon, who tells us that although one may not be metaltal ner, which is burning, however, once the flame has already gone out, it's mutter to metaltal ner. Avol, but this only pertains to a small lamp, a small container. But if we have a large container of oil, a kois, a ka'ara, a shashes, these items, even if they go out on Shabbos, one cannot move them. They're muktzah. Says, well, what's the difference between a ner or a kois, a ka'ara, and a shashes? What's the difference? Maishnahani, Amar Ula Seifa son Reb Yehuda. You're right. This wasn't Reb Shimon speaking. This was actually Reb Yehuda, who says that once once a flame was burning, even after it goes out, the vessel, the kli that was supporting that flame, still remains asur on account of the fact that it was muktzah ben hashmashmis. Says Masklar Marzutra. He has the following kasha: Iyachi, my aval. If this is Reb Yehuda speaking, why is he saying aval? Meaning, this implies that only these are asur, but something else, for instance, a ner, which is a small size container, that's mutter. We know that's not to be so. Rabbi Yehuda holds that even a ner, even a small lamp, shekava, which was extinguished, is asur on account of muktzah machmas isur. Says Gemara, Ella, he must say, Ella Marazutra la'oilim Reb Shimon. We're speaking about Shitas Reb Shimon. It was Reb Shimon who is stating this closing remark. This closing halacha is actually Reb Shimon's conclusion. And he says as follows: V'chikashar Reb Shimon b'ner Zutra. Reb Shimon only allows b'matal l'ner once the flame has gone out. B'ner Zuta, a small lamp that died because his mind is on it. Meaning, he sits and waits. He anticipates the flame to going out of the flame on Shabbos. He has expectations for this kli to become usable on Shabbos. He knows that this small ner won't go last throughout the whole Shabbos. It's going to go out sometime or other within Shabbos. And he knows and he expects this container to be usable on Shabbos. Therefore, even though there's a flame currently burning, it doesn't become muktzah for the whole Shabbos. His mind is still on it. He's not Masiach Das. He expects it to be available throughout Shabbos, and therefore it's not considered to be muktzah. He didn't reject it out of hand. But these containers, which are large-sized containers, contain a lot of oil, and chances are this flame is going to burn and burn throughout the entire Shabbos. He has no expectations. He has no anticipation. He doesn't expect to use this container on Shabbos. In this case, even according to Reb Shimon, this becomes muktzah. So it's a combination of the fact that there's an isser taking place, there's a chevet shel isser, there's a flame burning here, and number two, the fact that he is acknowledging, he's rejecting it. He's been Masiach Das by saying, okay, it's burning, let it go. I'm not gonna use it anymore during the Shabbos. Therefore, according to Reb Shimon as well, this is considered to be muktzah, and it is asur b'tiltul even after, for some reason, the flame did end up going out, and now there's no burning fire. According to Reb Shimon, he was Masiach Das from this chayfetz, and it's considered to be rejected from Shabbos use, and it is muktzah. So once again, according to Reb Shimon, a flame, a ner which contains a burning flame, is asur b'tiltul. What if the flame goes out? It depends what size container it was. If it was a small size container like a ner, we anticipated using this ner on Shabbos. He didn't remove his mind from it. He wasn't Masiach Das from it. He didn't divert his attention from the snare. So even though currently there's a flame burning, but once the flame goes out, he can use it. However, a large container where he didn't expect it to become fit for use on Shabbos, he expected the flame to just keep on burning. In that case, he's Masiach Das, and it is muktzah even according to Reb Shimon, even after the flame goes out. Says the Gemara, is that so? Vatani, but haven't we learned in the Brisa? This was the Brisa mentioned earlier in the beginning of the blot. Moiser Hashemen v'aner shebeka'ara asur. If we have leftover oil in the ner or in the ka'ara, it's asur. Why? This was Shitas of Yehuda, who held that once something becomes muktzah at the beginning of Shabbos, like the shemen in the ner, which was muktzah because you couldn't draw it at that point because of an account of malachav mechabe, because you're going to dim the flame, or because it served as a basis for the shalevis. So in either case, it was muktzah ben hashmashos, and therefore the muktzah stretches, continues throughout Shabbos. This was Shitas Rabbi Yehuda. However, Reb Shimon matter. Reb Shimon says it could use the leftover oil. Now, we're speaking about not only a ner, also a ka'ara, which is a larger bowl. So you see that even Reb Shimon holds that even a large sized bowl can become mutter on Shabbos. He's not Masiach Das from it. And, or even if he is Masiach Das from it, it doesn't affect its status. It's still considered to be mutter on Shabbos. Says the Gemara, there are two sizes of ka'aras. Some over there, ka'ara dumid the ner. The Brisa lists ka'ara with ner together, apparently speaking out a small bowl. So it's a small container indeed. He anticipates its use on Shabbos. However, in the second Brisa, where the Brisa lists together the ka'is with the ka'ar with ashoshes, we're speaking about a large size ka'ar dumid the ka'is. It's a large size ka'ar, similar to the size of a ka'is, and therefore he doesn't expect it to be used on Shabbos, and it's Masiach Das, and it's muktzah. Okay, so once again we have four shitas. We have Rabbi Yehuda, who discusses muktzah machmas mius on account of the repulsiveness of this klicheres, which is grimy. We have Rabbi Meir, who discusses muktzah machmas isur. It served as a basis for the flame. The oil was usher to be used because of kiboy. So the muktzah machmas isur that was present during Ben Hashmashos carries through the whole Shabbos. We have Reb Shimon who tells us, I don't agree with any of the above. We have Reb Lezer Shimon who extends that heter even further. Now, what about Reb Yehuda Reb Meir? Does Reb Yehuda agree with Reb Meir that muktzah machmas isur is asur, or does he maintain only muktzah machmas mius? The Gemara will explore that. Omer B'Zer, pamait. This is a candlestick, not a klicheres. It's a metal candlestick, which doesn't become moss when you use it. You can merely wash it off, and it's not repulsive in any manner. So pamait shedliku by b'Shabbos. So this pamait that was used, that was lit on Shabbos. L'divrei hamater. So according to Reb Meir, who is mater the ner yashan, he says, I don't agree with muktzah machmas mius. I discuss muktzah machmas isur, but not muktzah machmas mius. So according to Reb Meir, l'divrei hamater, asur. In this case, it will be asur because he lit the pamait on Shabbos, and it contained the flame, and therefore this pamait, this candlestick, is a muktzah machmas isur. So once again, liver mater according to Reb Meir, who is mater muktzah machmas mius and prohibits muktzah machmas isur. In this case, it's asur because it's muktzah machmas isur. However, liver iser according to Rabbi Yehuda, who prohibits, who asers the muktzah machmas mius. He says that the ner cheres, which was used, cannot be used on Shabbos because it is repulsive. It is muktzah machmas mius. In this case of a pamait, a metal item which is not repulsive, it's not mos, mutter. It is mutter to be moved on Shabbos once the flame goes out. Why? Because apparently, according to Rav Yehuda, there's no concept of muktzah machmas isur. So this is Rav Zera's statement. Rav Yehuda only holds of muktzah machmas isur, machmas mius, and Rav Meir only holds of muktzah machmas isur. Says more, that's so. L'meimra, are you going to propose that Rabbi Yehuda muktzah machmas mius isle? He holds of mius. Muktzah machmas isur lesle, but doesn't agree with the concept of muktzah machmas isur. Vatani, but haven't we learned that that's not so? Rabbi Daimer, kol haner shel ma'ateches All ner is made of metal. Metalton, it can be moved on Shabbos. Chutz min haner shedliku b'Shabbos or b'oisa Shabbos, except for something which contained a flame on this Shabbos. And at the end point of Shabbos, at the Ben Hashmoshes, it had the status of muktzah, and it required this din of muktzah to extend, which extends throughout the entire Shabbos. So apparently Rabbi agrees to muktzah machmas iser, even a ner shemal teches, which doesn't become mos. It doesn't have the halacha muktzah machmas mias. Nevertheless, it is asar on account due to the fact that it had a burning flame during Ben Hashmoshes, which makes it muktzah machmas iser because it's supporting the flame, which one cannot touch on Shabbos. Touching a flame is mechaber, so it's a dvar iser, it's a chayvus of iser, and the pomit, the ner shemateches as well, is subordinate to that flame and has a din of muktzah machmas iser. Says the more you must say differently. Ela itmar chimtmar. If we learned Rav Zera's statement, it must have been said differently. Hachi itmar. This is how he said it. Rav Zera. Pomit shedliku olav b'Shabbos. Even a pomit, a metal candelabra, metal candlestick, which was lit on Shabbos. Divrei HaKol Asur, all agree. Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi both agree that it's Asur. Why? Because it's muktzah machmas iser. Lo yidliku olav, but otherwise, if it didn't contain a flame during this Shabbos, Divrei HaKol mutar, all agree that it's mutar. Why? Because it never became muktzah on this Shabbos, and it's not muktzah machmas mias because it's a metal item. It's only a klicheres that becomes grimy since it absorbs the oil within it. That is muktzah machmas mias. But a metal item, Rashi says, kugayin shel nechoshes, a copper candelabra, copper candlestick, it doesn't become mos, and therefore it's mutar. So according to this conclusion, both Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Meir both agree regarding the concept of muktzah machmas iser. The disagreement surrounds the concept of muktzah machmas mias. Rabbi Yehuda says that too is muktzah. Rabbi Meir says no, that doesn't make it muktzah. So he prefers not getting involved in this grimy item. It doesn't make it off limits. It doesn't make it usur on Shabbos. Okay, let's take a short summary of the shittas that we have so far. We have 4 shittas: Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Meir, Rabbi Shimon, and Rabbi Elazar Rabbi Shimon regarding the concept of muktzah. Let's start with Rabbi Yehuda. So according to the conclusion of the Gemara, Rabbi Yehuda holds of muktzah machmas iser, muktzah machmas mius, and he holds that if something became muktzah ben hashmoshes, for instance, a candlestick which had a burning flame on it during the endpoint, during the entry of Shabbos, during ben hashmoshes, at that point it attains its muktzah status, which extends throughout Shabbos. Even after the flame is extinguished, the item still retains its status as a muktzah item. According to Rabbi Meir, he doesn't agree with mius. He says only muktzah machmas iser is considered to be muktzah, and here too he agrees that if that happened during Ben Hashmoshes, it becomes muktzah throughout the entire day. Rabbi Shimon disagrees with this whole concept of muktzah Ben Hashmoshes. He says, well, if it is burning right now, if the flame is on, don't touch the ner, because it is a basis, serving a basis for the shalheves. As Rashi says, is a concern they might inadvertently put out the flame. Rabbi Shimon, however, agrees about the oil which is dripping from this lit flame. That cannot be used on Shabbos because this oil is coming from a mitzvah. It is huksel mitzvasai. Rabbi Shimon agrees that something which is huksel mitzvasai has a status of a muktzah because it's an entirely different realm. It's a chayvus shel mitzvah. It's designated for mitzvah use, not for ordinary use. The Gemara proceeded that even Rabbi Shimon agrees that if he's been siach das from this burning lamp on Shabbos, he doesn't expect it to go out on Shabbos. He doesn't expect to have any use from it on Shabbos. It's a large container with lots of oil. According to Rabbi Shimon there as well, it assumes the status of muktzah, and even after the flame goes out, is rejected from Shabbos use. This is one more muktzah the Gemara soon will discuss is muktzah machmas gufay, for instance, coins. As Rashi says, coins don't have any practical use on Shabbos. Therefore, even according to Rabbi Shimon, that too is considered to be rejected from Shabbos use, and that too is considered to be muktzah. His son, Rabbi Elazar Rabbi Shimon says, I'm more lenient than my father. Even a muktzah machmas mitzvah is mutter, and even the oil which is dripping from this burning lamp, this ner Shabbos, is mutter, even while the lamp is burning. Now, with regard to muktzah machmas gufay, l'chayra, apparently his son agrees that muktzah machmas gufay is considered to be muktzah. That's something of an assumption. So what emerges is a picture regarding the various shittas of muktzah as follows. The Mepharshim give us a formula to understand Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Shimon. Rabbi Yehuda's approach to muktzah is that in order for something to be mutter on Shabbos, it needs to be muchan for Shabbos. It needs to be prepared, designated for Shabbos use. Therefore, Rabbi Yehuda holds that a keli that is malachte l'isser, a tool that is meant to be used for a malacha, it's not designated, it's not prepared for Shabbos, it's muktzah. The same thing regarding something which is most repulsive, it's also sidelined from Shabbos use. And when is this determined? What is the kaiveya of whether something's muktzah or not for this Shabbos? It is determined at the end point of Shabbos, during Ben Hashmashos, because this hachana, this preparation, needs to take place from before Shabbos. It needs to be prepared for Shabbos. So if at the commencement, at the onset of Shabbos, it is muktzah, we have a burning lamp here during Ben Hashmashos. So once it wasn't mukhan for Shabbos, during that end point of Shabbos, during that Ben Hashmashos, it's too late. It was never prepared for the Shabbos. So even if the lamp goes out, it doesn't have the achana, it doesn't have the designation, and it's off limits on Shabbos. Now Rameir seems to agree to the basic concept. He disagrees with one detail, that something which is mos, it's not so terrible, it's not muktzah. Because even though he prefers not using it, but it's not so severe to be considered off limits on Shabbos. On the other hand, we have Rav Shimon, who holds that merely a lack of achana is not sufficient to make it asur on Shabbos. It needs to be absolutely rejected from Shabbos use in order for it to be considered muktzah. And it needs to be dochi from Shabbos. It needs to be pushed away from Shabbos. Therefore, according to Rav Shimon, if it's merely a klisha malachti l'isser, a tool item, it's still usable on Shabbos, it still has some practical use on Shabbos. Therefore, it's not muktzah. Rav Shimon holds that only a dvar mitzvah, a lamp which is burning for Ner Shabbos, the oil in there is designated for mitzvah use. It's rejected from ordinary use. It's dochi from ordinary use. That, indeed, is considered to be muktzah. Also, if he's mesiach das entirely, diverts his attention from this, for instance, these large containers which are burning this flame, and he doesn't anticipate the use of these containers any longer during this Shabbos. He's mesiach das from it. He rejects it out of his mind. That is also considered to be muktzah according to Reb Shimon. Also, if it's muktzah machmas gufay, for instance, coins, where there too, there's no practical use for these coins on Shabbos. They're absolutely rejected from Shabbos use. They're inherently, intrinsically sidelined from Shabbos use. And therefore, even according to Reb Shimon, muktzah applies there. However, Reb Shimon doesn't agree with the concept of ben hashmashos. He says we have to look at the present moment. If at this point in time it's useful on Shabbos, there's no muktzah. If it's not, then it's muktzah, regardless of whether it was muktzah during ben hashmashos. Because according to Reb Shimon, once again, there's no point of preparing for Shabbos. He doesn't need that positive element of preparedness for Shabbos, which is determined during the endpoint, during the onset of Shabbos, like according to Reb Yehuda. According to Reb Shimon, it's sufficient merely that there's no rejection taking place. It still has some practical usefulness on Shabbos. It's considered to be mutter on Shabbos. So even if during ben hashmashos it wasn't useful, but if right now you can use it, that's okay, that's sufficient. Let's continue further in the Gemara. Amar Rav Yehuda, Amar Rav, Mita, sheyichta l'mois, a bed which was designated to be used for money, to place money on it. And at that point, if he has the money on the bed will be a base, will form a support, a basis, l'davar aser. So Rav Yehuda tells us a chiddush. Even if he hadn't yet used this mita for the money, he's merely designating it. It already attains the status of a muktzah item. Also l'tatla, he cannot move the bed any longer. It says in Maser of Nachmar Yitzchak, we have a Mishnah which says, "Matalta ner chadash avlo yashan." One may move a ner chadash, a new lamp, a new klei cheres, but not a klei cheres, a earthenware lamp which was already used and absorbed the oil and the grime, and it's muktzah machmas mius. Now, the fact that the Mishnah tells us that a ner which is yoshan is muktzah because muktzah machasmias, that's sufficient. Why does the Mishnah have to begin with the opening words metaltal ner chadash? One may be metaltal a new lamp. It's self-evident. It's pashut from the second words avalo yoshan. That would merely suffice to tell us halacha muktzah machasmias. So why then does the Mishnah begin with the words metaltal ner chadash? Apparently the Mishnah is coming to tell us a chiddush halacha that mere designation is not sufficient. He can be metaltal ner chadash, since it wasn't yet made into a repulsive item, it wasn't yet used with oil, it didn't absorb the oil and the grime. Number two, even if it was designated to be used as an air, designated as a kli shel mlachta l'isur, that's not sufficient to give it the status, the halacha of kli shel mlachta l'isur. So apparently that is the chiddush of the Mishnah, metaltal ner chadash. One can be metaltal, a new ner which was never used, even though perhaps he designated for a mlachta l'isur, to be used as a lamp. So this is a kasha on Rav Rav who tells us the mere designation already grants it the status of a muktzah item. It says more, Uma ner. Since we find the kavachayim, if we find that ner, why does one create a fashion a ner? Why does one purchase a ner? It's meant to be used to burn with it, to light a flame. Ma ner loch avida. It's meant to be used for a kli shel mlachta l'isur. Nevertheless, if he hadn't yet lit it, shari, it's mutter, even though he did designate it for that purpose. Shari l'tatula. Mita which is not made for this purpose. Primary use of a bed is not to place money on it. Certainly, designation does not give it the status of muktzah. Says Mar Ella, rather, if Rabbi Yehuda taught us halacha name of Rav, this is what he taught us. Amar Vidam Rav, Mita, a bed which was designated for money, the designation alone is not sufficient. If he actually placed money on this bed throughout the week, he actualized his intention. Asur l'tatla. The combined factors of designation and actually using it for this purpose grants it a din of kli shel mlachta l'isur, and he cannot use it on Shabbos. He cannot move it on Shabbos. However, but if he hasn't yet put money on it, he merely designated it, mutar l'tatla, it doesn't have a din of muktzah. What if he didn't even designate it for money? Then it depends. If there are mois present on this bed on Shabbos itself, then the bed is considered to be a basis, l'davar aser, it's supporting a muktzah item. Aser l'tatla, you can't move the bed. But if on Shabbos there's no money present on this bed, mutar l'tatla, he can't move the bed, although he was miyachad the bed for money, yichad alone, designation alone is not sufficient. Continues the Gemara, provided that there was no money on this bed during Ben Hashmashes. Because as we learned earlier, the determined factor is the status of the item during Ben Hashmashes. So if the bed had money on it during Ben Hashmashes, during the onset of Shabbos, the bed assumes the status of a basis of aser, and even if the money was removed later on, let's say a guy came and removed it or whatever, so there's no money here now on Shabbos, the bed is considered to be muktzah on account of it having served the money during Ben Hashmashes. So in summary, what about a bed which has money placed on it? So we have four categories. If he designated the bed for this purpose and he actually used it, it's muktzah. If he designated it but did not use it, or in the reverse, he used it but did not designate it, it's not muktzah. If there is money on this bed on Shabbos itself, it's muktzah. If there's no money now, but there was during Ben Hashmashes, it is muktzah, and this follows the Shiur of Rabbi Yehuda, who holds that once something is muktzah Ben Hashmashes, the muktzah status extends throughout the entire Shabbos. Says the word, is that so? The Ben Hashmashes determines, Omar Ula, Mas Rebbe Lezer asked the kasha from the following Mishnah. We're discussing a wooden coach, Rashi calls it a shida, a agola shalet, a wooden coach, which was used for transportation. So if this agola, this coach, has a muchni, a wheel, what is the halacha of this muchni? Is it considered to be part and parcel of the coach or not? It depends, says the Mishnah. Muchni shala, this wheel, bizman shi nishmetes, if it's removable, ein chibula, it's not considered to be connected, integral part of the wagon. And this is with regard to Tumah. So if the wagon becomes Tameh, the Muchni is not Tameh. The same in the reverse. They're two separate entities. So that's one halacha. Ve'ein and dedas ima. It's not calculated together with the shida, with the wagon. So this pertains to the halacha of Kabbalah's Tumah, that a kli eitz, which is very large in size, it contains 40 sa of liquid. It's too large to be Kabbalah Tumah, since it can't be carried around. When it's full, it would break on you. And we learned from a pasuk, a hekesh, that a kli eitz needs to be something which is mobile even when it's full, in order for it to be Kabbalah Tumah. So we measure the dimensions of the agola from the outside, not necessarily the content area, but we measure it from the outside dimensions, and we see whether these dimensions can contain theoretically 40 sa. It's considered to be large to be Kabbalah Tumah. It's considered to be an oil, and it's not Kabbalah Tumah. Now, does this muchni go into this calculation? Is it reckoned as part of the dimensions of the actual wagon, and it will determine its volume? So if it's movable, if it's removable, shmetes, then no, it's considered to be a separate item, and ein and dedas ima is not calculated together with the actual wagon. It can't save with it from an oil mace, meaning this wagon, if it's very large, if it contains an amount of 40 sa, like we mentioned, it's considered to be an oil. So if it's suspended over a mace, there's at least one tefach between the oil and the mace. So the oil which is suspended up in the air, even though it's a portable oil zarek, it still has a din of an oil, and if there are kalim inside this oil, the oil protects it from becoming tamei. It's considered to be in a separate domain, and the kalim are not makabel tumah, even though they are suspended over the mace. Since they're inside this oil, they're protected. They're matzel. This oil is matzelis by oil mace. Now, what about this muchni? This is also combined with the wagon to protect the kalim. Suppose there's a kli which is hanging over the lid of the wagon, so it's hanging out of the wagon, and the muchni is underneath it. So is the muchni also considered to be part of the oil and will form as a hefsek, as a interruption between the mace and the kli? Can it be matzel together with the wagon? So it depends. If it's nishmetes, if it's a removal, then it's not considered to be one entity with the shida, and it is not matzelas ima b'oil mace. It doesn't have the din of an oil to combine with the wagon to save the items. One can't drag. He cannot pull this wheel when there's money on it. Rashi said before, the muchni actually has a base kibul, has some place where you can put items. So in any case, if there's money on this wheel, so is the wheel considered to be muktzah? Is it considered to be a basis, a basis, a support for a muktzah item, and it is muktzah on Shabbos? So yes, if it is nishmetes, if this muchni is removable from the shida, from this agola, from this coach, it's considered to be its own entity, has its own identity, and therefore if there's mois placed on this wheel, the wheel becomes muktzah. But if it would not be separatable from the wagon, then it would be considered to be one entity attached to the wagon. And as long as there's no money on the wagon itself, there's no concern if there's money on the wheel. Why? Because the wheel is a tuffle to the wagon. It's not its own entity. And as long as the wagon is not muktzah, the wheel is not muktzah as well. So the Gemara implies from here that apparently the only concern is if there's mois on the muchni itself. If there's currently money on it, you can't drag the muchni, the wheel. But this implies that if there's no money presently on this wheel, sharia, one can drag this wheel. There's no muktzah din applied here. Even though, even though there was money on this wheel during Ben Hashmashis, apparently the fact that it was muktzah during Ben Hashmashis, it doesn't give it a muktzah status, which extends throughout the entire Shabbos. And this is in direct contradiction. The halacha stated earlier, the name of Rebbe Marav, that muktzah during Ben Hashmashis extends throughout Shabbos. Says the Gemara, Hayikra Reb Shimoni. This Mishnah is following Reb Shimon Shita. The last line muktzah holds that when something had money on it during Ben Hashmashis, it was muktzah Ben Hashmashis. It doesn't affect the status throughout Shabbos. He doesn't agree to this whole concept. So this Mishnah is following his Shita. For Rav was following Shita of Yehuda, who holds indeed that when something was muktzah Ben Hashmashis, since it lacked preparedness for Shabbos, it wasn't muchen for Shabbos, it's considered to be muktzah throughout the entire Shabbos. Okay, let's take a chazorah. We began with the halacha of the shemen of a ner. We have three categories. Is one allowed to take shemen from a burning lamp? Certainly not. That's mechaber because he's dimming the brightness of the lamp. There's another factor that it's huktzil mitzvasa. It's designated for ner Shabbos. What about the oil which is dripping from the ner doilek, from this burning lamp? All agree. Rabbi Yehuda and Rav Shimon both agree. One cannot use it because it's huktzil mitzvasa. It's designated for mitzvah use. What about the leftover oil after the lamp has already burnt out? Here we have a machlekes. According to Rav Shimon, it's mutter, because although it was muktzah during Ben Hashmashos, it doesn't determine its halacha throughout the entire Shabbos. According to Rav Yehuda, when something is muktzah Ben Hashmashos, why was it muktzah Ben Hashmashos? Because muktzah machmas iser, on two accounts. Because one was not allowed to use this oil while the lamp was burning, because taking the oil would be doing kiboy on the lamp, would be dimming the brightness. Number two, the oil is serving as a basis, a basis for the shalevis, for the flame, which is muktzah. Therefore, according to Rav Yehuda, when something is muktzah during Ben Hashmashos, that status extends throughout Shabbos. We continue with the various shitas of muktzah. We have Rav Yehuda, Rav Meir, Rav Shimon, and Rav Shimon. We read the whole that muktzah applies to muktzah machmas iser. For instance, a tool which is meant to be used for a malacha, or the oil in the lamp, which was usher to use that oil, because taking that oil when the lamp is burning is the malacha of kiboy. So it's considered to be muktzah machmas iser. Rav Yehuda applies muktzah to miyas as well. For instance, a ner shel cheres which was used and is grimy, is repulsive, and the muktzah is determined during Ben Hashmashos. According to Rav Meir, yes, he agrees basically, except for the iser of muktzah machmas miyas. He holds that's not considered to be muktzah on Shabbos. Rav Shimon holds a shita which is diametrically opposed. He holds that muktzah is not something which lacks preparation, but rather something which is outright rejected from Shabbos use. For instance, something which is designated for mitzvah, something which is mesiach das completely. And also, as we just learned, money, moi, since it has no practical use. Therefore, that is considered to be muktzah on Shabbos. And as we just learned, if it's sitting on the wheel, and the wheel is a basis serving as supported basis for that money, even according to Rav Shimon, that is considered to be muktzah because the money is muktzah machas gufa, it has no practical Shabbos use. Rabbi Lezer, the son of Rav Shimon, extends the heter even further. He says, even oil dripping from a burning lamp from an ner Shabbos is mutter. He doesn't agree with the muktzah machas mitzvah. However, apparently he will hold that even that money, which is muktzah machas gufa, perhaps will be usher, since it has no intrinsic, it has no inherent use on Shabbos. It's inherently rejected from Shabbos use. The Gemara proceeded with the halacha of yichud, designating an item for muktzah. For instance, a bed, money on a bed. So we have four categories. If he designated for this use and he actually put the money on it, it's muktzah. If he designated or he merely placed money on it, it's not muktzah. If there is money present on this bed on Shabbos, all agree that it's muktzah. Rav Yehuda agrees, Rav Shimon agrees, because the mois are muktzah according to all, and the bed is serving as a basis for that. What about if the money was present on this bed, not now, but during Ben Hashmashos? We have a machlekes. According to Rabbi Yehuda, when something is muktzah Ben Hashmashos, that muktzah status extends throughout the entire Shabbos. It lacks the achana. It's not designated any longer for Shabbos use, since during the first moments of Shabbos, it wasn't mukhan. According to Rabbi Shimon, only when the money is actually on the bed is muktzah. But the fact that there was money there during Ben Hashmashos, that's irrelevant. According to Rabbi Shimon, the fact that it lacks preparation, lacks achana, that doesn't render it muktzah on Shabbos. Okay, let's try to tie together all the shitas and present all the various scenarios, how the various tanaim will relate to them. Let's start with the simple one, ner chadash, a brand new lamp which was never used. According to all shitas, it is mutter. What about an ner yashan shel cheres, which is mos? According to Rav Yehuda, it's muktzah machmas miyas. According to all the other shitas, it's mutter. What about a lamp which is currently burning? According to Rav Yehuda, according to Rav Meir, and Rav Shimon, it's muktzah. Even according to Rav Shimon, because the ner is forming as a basis for the shalheves, which is muktzah, and therefore it is a basis of davar aser and is aser to metal on Shabbos. What about a ner which was lit during Shabbos? It was lit during Ben Hashmashos, but right now the flame has already been extinguished. According to Rav Yehuda Rav Meir, it's muktzah machmas iser, because that gets determined during the first point of Shabbos during Ben Hashmashos. It's no longer prepared, designated for Shabbos use. According to Rav Shimon and certainly his son, this will be mutter, because as long as it's currently fit for use, it's not rejected. One is able to use it right now. It's irrelevant what happened during Ben Hashmashis. What about the oil dripping from an Erev Shabbos? According to Rabbi Yehuda, according to Rabbi Meir, and according to Rabbi Shimon, it's Asur. All agree that this case is Asur. Even Rabbi Shimon agrees, because this oil is coming from a mitzvah. It was designated as Huksel Mitzvasai, and is not meant to be used for ordinary use on Shabbos. According to his son, according to Rabbi Shimon, this is Mutter. He doesn't agree with the concept of the Issa of Huksel Mitzvasai. What about the leftover oil after the flame has already gone out? The flame was burning during Ben Hashmashis. Therefore, according to Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Meir, the oil is muktzah, because once it was muktzah during Ben Hashmashis, on account of Huksel Mitzvasai or on account of Muktzah Machmas Isser, that status remains throughout the entire Shabbos. According to Rabbi Shimon and his son, no such concept applies. If right now the flame is out, go ahead and use the oil. What about the large containers, the ka'is, the ka'ara, the ashashis, which contain a large amount of oil in them? And right now, for some reason, the flame has been extinguished. According to Rabbi Shimon, this case is muktzah, because it was Mesiach Das, because he didn't expect the flame to go out. He expected the muktzah to continue, the issa to continue. And therefore, even according to Rabbi Shimon, this indeed is muktzah. All agree that something which is muktzah machas gufay, something which is inherently incapable of being used on Shabbos, doesn't have a practical use like money. All agree that that's asur. And once again, the concept of muktzah ben hashmashes, which is based on the concept of ha'achana, that something needs to be prepared for Shabbos. From before Shabbos, it needs to be muchan for Shabbos, and therefore, based on that, if something is muktzah ben hashmashes, at the onset of Shabbos, the muktzah extends throughout Shabbos, since it's lacking that achana. This concept is only agreed upon by Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Meir, and not by Rabbi Shimon or Rabbi Lezer of Shimon.